I just had this feeling in my gut of like, okay, this feels like an opportunity. It feels like something that, I just felt in my intuition that it was the right path.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's episode of It Takes Grit with your host, me, Rebecca Louise. And in the studio today, we have the incredible Dorothy Illson. She is an entrepreneur, speaker, and paid traffic expert. We got the opportunity to meet at a recent mastermind. I fell in love with her. She was like, I can help you. Something was going on with my business and my Facebook account. And I was like, oh my goodness, please help me. And just in her lunch break, she decided that she would be open enough and share how she was able to get help me with my business. So she's going to help all of us today with our business. And Dorothy, I'm so grateful for your time. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to do this with you.
It's going to be so much fun. And guys, we're going to touch on Dorothy's story. We're going to talk about the importance of investing in personal development, how to pick a mentor, the path onto entrepreneurship, the grit to walk away from a job that you might have had for a while that you feel like is, secure, but really you want to be that entrepreneur. And we're also going to talk about figuring it out, always figuring it out. And we were just chatting before we got started on this podcast. And, we all have gaps in our business. Like wherever you're at, it doesn't matter if you're making $10,000 a year on your side hustle or you're making $100 million a year. Everybody has a gap. So Dorothy, first of all, let's get started with your story. We want to hear where you're from, all of the things, and then how you got to where you are today.
Awesome. Let's do it. Well, I'm so excited to talk about this because I feel like every single one of us, there are these pivotal moments in our lives where things just completely change direction, or they have the opportunity to, if we're, able to just, take the leap and kind of have the guts to do it. And so for me, there have been really two kind of defining moments in my journey. The first one, which was all about just having the grit, the courage, whatever you want to call it, to take a leap. And then the second one was really all about, mentorship and, and finding the right person to guide you. So taking it way back to when I was in college, I had, really a very kind of traditional, stereotypical idea of what success was going to look like. I wanted to be, quote, successful, right? And so what did that mean? In my mind, it was a job at a big company where I could climb the corporate ladder and make a lot of money and have the title and, all of that. Right. So I went into finance and accounting in college just because that seemed like the path to success, right? It's a secure job. It's going to be a good career. I can make money, all that good stuff. And so as I was going through school, I had this laser focus on this goal of getting a job with one of the big four accounting firms here in the States. And so, I ultimately was successful in that. I did my internship at PricewaterhouseCoopers here in Chicago, accepted the full-time job offer, was so excited, and, kind of went into my senior year of college, really just in the position of, all right, I just have to graduate and I have this, incredible job waiting for me. It's going to be the launching pad to this great career. And then what ended up just throwing all of this into a whole heap of confusion was basically stumbling upon personal development. And so I started reading books like Think and Grow Rich and kind of like all of these like classic personal development books. And it got me to really, for the very first time, ask myself the question of, is this career not only going to make me money, but is it going to make me happy? And it's so funny in hindsight, realizing like, how crazy is it that I'd never even bothered to ask that question? It wasn't even part of the formula. And so the answer was really a resounding no. I was not excited about the job. I didn't love accounting. I was really just doing it for the paycheck, and for this, status symbol of a successful career that I thought that would mean. And so, long story short, I ultimately ended up calling up my recruiter 2 weeks after graduation, telling her, I'm so sorry, but I'm not going to be coming. Gave up the job offer and, really just took a leap and had to have faith in myself that I would figure it out.
Wow. So the whole, going through university, going through college, you're like, this is exactly what I want to do. This is it. You read a couple of books and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, 2 weeks before I'm not doing this. And how did you feel once you made that decision that you didn't want to do the accounting job? Like, was it a sigh of relief? Was it like, oh my goodness, I'm panicking now? Was it scarcity? What did you feel when you made that decision?
It was relief, honestly, because it was the misalignment between the path that I was walking and my vision of what I wanted to my life to look like that was causing me so much discomfort. So, even when I, made this decision really not knowing what the path was going to look like, at least I was finally in alignment where I was intentionally trying to create a life where I could be happy, right? And so there was a massive amount of relief. Obviously there was, some fear mixed in along with it, but the relief definitely outweighed that fear, because I finally felt like, okay, I'm taking the reins and I'm going to create my life as I want it to be.
Isn't that so funny that we get so worried about the fear instead of the relief? I
Mhm.
love that you said, like, I felt relieved, because so often we're like, oh, I don't know if this is the right thing that I want to do, but I'm too scared to do something different. But how about we feel like you're going to feel relieved when you're in alignment with exactly what you said, when you're in alignment with what you want to do, with what makes you happy, you feel relieved and you feel excited. And I think
Mhm.
that we get that mixed up. It's like, let's, instead of saying fear, I'm going to feel so relieved once I've done that. So I love that word. Do you remember if there was like a certain book that, or a line that you read in the book that was like a light bulb moment, or a few things that you were like, okay, I'm not meant to go and do this job? Like, what was the book? Do you kind of remember like what it was?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it wasn't kind of one specific line or even one specific book that did it for me. I really started diving into the whole world of really self-help, personal development, money mindset, law of attraction, all of these things. And it it opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me. And that was really the key. It had never occurred to me previously that I could both make a lot of money and have a career, a life that I felt fulfilled and felt happy. That always kind of felt like an either or choice to me. Like, oh, I can go like my passion is horseback riding. It's like, yeah, I can go be a horse trainer and live on peanuts, or I can go be a partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers and make a ton of money, right? And so um really kind of exploring this world, it was the first time that I entertained the idea of, well, maybe I could have both. Maybe I could have all of these things.
Wow. So what did you do? You're not going to go to this
Yeah.
job. 2 weeks out. Now what? What's the decision?
So I had already committed to, an apartment, roommates here in Chicago. So I moved to Chicago anyway. And I had actually, what kind of launched me into discovering personal development was actually joining a network marketing company my senior year in college. So I was kind of doing that, but it really wasn't working out very well. I was starting to realize, like, okay, this is not going to be the thing. I got to figure out what to do here. And how it actually unfolded is pretty cool, because I feel like it's just such an example of the way the universe just lines up for you when you are so certain in your intention. So for me, I was now living in Chicago. I had to pay rent. I had no income. And so I thought, like, okay, what can I do to make money right now? I thought, all right, why don't I just go get like a temporary like nannying gig, like babysitting or something. So I went on care.com and I went to go interview for this like 3 day a week, like morning, nannying gig. And it was the interview was to take care of this baby that was like a fresh baby, like, she was maybe 2 weeks old or something. And I go to this interview, I'm holding this baby and I'm clearly so uncomfortable. I've never seen an infant this size. And her mother just starts like asking me all these questions about myself. I'm, telling her my story. And at the end of it, she says, hey, I think maybe you should talk to my husband. He's the co-founder of this startup, and they could use some help, so on and so forth. So it's funny, in hindsight, the way she tells the story is that her husband got home and said, hey, how are the nanny interviews? And she said, well, there's this one girl, she definitely shouldn't watch our child, but I think you should talk to her.
Oh my God, that is the best story ever. I love that. So what was his startup? What was it all about?
Yeah. So it's a company called Factor 75. It's a prepared meal delivery startup. And so I, went and talked to him. He ultimately, offered me, do you want to come help us out for, 10, 20 hours a week? I had a lot of skills in, just data analysis and, stuff from finance and accounting that would be valuable to them. So I decided to do that. 2 weeks in, they asked if I could come on full time. And that was the start of my working there. So I was very naive. I did not realize how early on the company was, honestly, when I took the offer. I was their third employee. And, over the next 3.5 years, we grew that company to about $8 million a year in revenue, annual revenue. And then ultimately, just within the last year, they went on to sell to HelloFresh for, over $200 million. So it was just really an incredible experience that I honestly stumbled my way into.
Wow, that's incredible. So how long did you work for them for?
Yeah, so I worked there for about 3.5 years, and then the co-founder from that nanny interview, he decided to leave the company, and he had really become an incredible mentor to me. I was learning so much from him, and he was really the reason that I had stayed there for 3.5 years. And so when he left, I knew that I wanted to leave too. But I'd gotten very spoiled in that job because I had a ton of autonomy. I had flexibility. I could work from home when I wanted to. And I really didn't want to go backwards into something more corporate where all of a sudden I'd have to, be sitting in an office in Chicago 5 days a week. And so I was interviewing around, and I really wasn't finding opportunities where I felt like I would still have that level of autonomy and flexibility. And so I got the idea in my head of, okay, well, why don't I try to do something on my own? And to everyone else in my life, my parents, my friends, everyone was telling me, well, you can't do that. It's so risky. It's so risky. And this is where I go back to that like fear versus relief thing, because I think it's so important when we're in these pivotal moments to really ask ourselves the question of, what is the worst case scenario? Because I think what we often do is we have this idea in our head of, well, if this goes wrong, it's going to be the worst thing in the world. I'm never going to recover. It's going to be terrible. And usually we haven't actually like really played it out of like, what is the worst case scenario? And for me, I recognize, I was extremely fortunate to be in the position that I was, but my reality was that I was very confident in my ability to get a job quickly if I needed one. I knew that if shit hit the fan, I couldn't pay my rent, I could go out and within a couple of weeks I could find a job. And so to me, the worst case scenario was really not that bad. It's all right, well, this doesn't work out. I run out of money, I can't figure it out, and I go get a job, which was the situation I was in anyway, of having to go get a job. So to me, it actually felt very low risk. It felt like the greater risk was in not trying and, never kind of seeing what was possible.
Yeah, and the risk of not being happy. They're like, hey, people are like, oh, it's so risky. It's like, what? I'm going to go risk being really freaking miserable because I'm going to go do a job that I don't want. Like, surely it should be the happiness that's the risk, not the money.
Right.
You can figure that out. Wow, that's incredible. So then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this by myself. How did you know what you wanted to do, or what? Because now you have this amazing agency. I was on your website, by the way. That's the coolest thing that you have, like how it all asks you those questions. I'm like, that's the most rad thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anyone do that before. So how did you know like this was what, and did you start off doing that?
I
Or
didn't know.
okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Tell us what
I
happened.
had no idea what this was going to look like. So, I was very naive, and I think the fact that I was so naive actually played to my advantage, because I might not have actually done it if I'd realized kind of how hard it was going to be to figure it out, but it was so worth it. So basically what happened was I, I started just going through all of these different ideas. Like, I had a lot of skills for my time at this startup. I'd done a lot in email marketing and in just a lot of stuff related to digital and digital marketing strategy. And so I just started dabbling in, like, all right, what are different services I could sell? What are things I could do freelancing? And for about 4 months, I basically just totally floundered. I was making no money. And to be clear, I didn't have like a big savings account, from those 3.5 years working at this startup. I was making, I think I started there at, $42,000 a year or something. I'm living in Chicago. Like, I was not saving money. So I was renting my apartment out on Airbnb to pay my rent. And that was really honestly what saved me during that time. And so 4 months in, I still had no traction. And again, the universe kind of lining things up for me. I got a call from my old boss, who told me that he had a ticket to this workshop on Facebook ads and he couldn't go. He couldn't use the ticket. And did I want it? So I said, yes, of course. So I go to this workshop. It was this 3-day intensive, like a dozen people at this guy's house. And it was a deep dive into Facebook advertising. And what I found was that it just aligned so well with my skill set, with my, kind of numbers, I'm very analytical, but I also, love the creative side. And by the end of the 3 days, I just had this feeling in my gut of like, I think I could be really good at this. And the person who was hosting that event, he was pitching his year-long, coaching program at the end of this, and it was $30,000 for the year. I was broke. I was literally renting out my apartment to other people so that I could pay for it. And I just had this feeling in my gut of like, okay, this feels like an opportunity. It feels like something that I just felt in my intuition that it was the right path. But again, I had no savings. I didn't have $30,000 certainly. But I knew that if I didn't do this, like, what else was it going to be? And I was probably going to end up having to give up and go get a job. So I ended up deciding to leap without without a parachute. And it's actually kind of a funny story. I called the guy had given out his phone number of like, anyone, if they have questions, feel free to give me a call. So I actually called him that night and was kind of dancing around the question of like, how likely do you think it is that I can be successful at this, that I can, really make this happen? And he could kind of totally just see through what I was saying and just said point blank, if you can't afford the program, don't do it. Like, I do not recommend you do it if you don't have the money for it. And I was like, got it. Totally understand. Hung up the phone, called up my old boss. I was like, I'm doing it. And I put the first payment on a credit card and was off to the races. That was the start of my agency.
Wow. And that's such an important thing because a lot of people say, I don't have the money. I don't have the money to do this. Go figure it out. I mean, I'm not saying go put everything on a credit card, but you knew in your head, like, I'm going to put the first thing on the credit card so that I can get started with this. And then I'm going to work my ass off for anything else to pay for it. So how did that look for you over the next couple of months? I don't know how much you put initially on that credit card, but then what were you doing to make that $30,000? Because someone not making any money, putting $30,000 down on something is a big investment.
Yes, it is. And I also certainly, like, my advice here is not, go buy crazy expensive programs and put them on credit cards. My advice is to have self-awareness and to put in the work. So like for me, I was coming to this moment having spent the last 4 years or so deep into personal development and just like working on myself and working on my mindset that by the time I got to that opportunity, I knew that I was going to do whatever it took to make it happen. So there was a degree of self-awareness in knowing that, this was something that I was going to make happen no matter what got in my way. And so for me, backing myself into a corner in that way of like, all right, I'm just going to leap and now I have to figure it out because I'm on the hook for this. Like there's no other option. So that was really motivating for me. And within, I want to say it was probably 4 or 5 months that it took me to get my first couple clients and pay that $30,000. And because I was working with this coach, I could do that with confidence because I was working with like truly like one of the top names in the industry. And he was holding my hand every step of the way, making sure that I was getting results, because you also don't want to go out and, start a business when you can't fulfill on what you're promising people. But because I had invested in this mentor and this coach who was literally like holding my hand and like on Zoom calls with me, just like this, like screen sharing, looking at my clients' ad accounts and talking through with me exactly how to get the results for people, I got the education of a lifetime over the course of that year. And, I have clients like my very first client that I got after I joined that coaching program and started doing this. He's still my client today, 4 years later. And so, it was really because I had the courage to get that help, to know what I didn't know, but also to know, what I was capable of when I put my mind to it.
And now you look back and you're like, that $30,000, like it's worth hundreds of
Best money I ever spent.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands. So how did you start to get your first clients? What was the first step that you took? Because I mean, a lot of my audience right now, they're actually looking to open up maybe like a little nutrition cafe, or maybe they're looking to open up something new, a side business. And they're like, oh my goodness, like I don't even have the money to invest $10,000 into like a build out. But it's like, you just have to figure it out, asking your friends and your family and, who can pitch in, where can you get that from, making it happen just like you did. But then it's like, great, I've got the money, I've figured that out. Now, how do I get the clients so that I can pay that off? What was your first step into getting clients?
Yeah. So, I mean, definitely the first thing and something that anyone can do, regardless of what kind of business you're starting, is being really loud about what you're doing. Tell people, like, don't, kind of hide away in your office and, think like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. And then once I'm successful, I'll tell people what I'm doing. Like, no, you have to be vocal about it because the way that I, got business in those early days and the way I still get business today was referrals. It was talking to people. It was, figuring out, okay, who are people that I know or that, people I know who I can provide value to. And so getting really loud about what you're doing, asking for referrals, asking for support from your network, from your friends, from your family of like, who can you introduce me to who might need my help? That was a big thing. And then the other, big source of clients for me then was actually Upwork, which is a freelancing platform where you can go and hire freelancers. And that was really how I got my first several clients.
And that's awesome. And like, we think about how do we get clients anywhere? You just have to figure it out. It could be referral. It could be just talking to somebody that you meet at a cafe. Like it could be joining masterminds. It could be absolutely anywhere. Cause a lot of times people are like, where do you find clients? I'm like, wherever there's people, you can find people.
Exactly.
What do you feel like right now is the biggest challenge that you have in your business and how are you overcoming that?
Oh gosh. Well, I was just telling you about it before we hit record. It is definitely learning to relinquish control. I think one thing that is so similar about a lot of people who have this entrepreneurial drive is that we are closet control freaks or not closet. I'm very loud and proud about being a control freak. Like I want to be involved in every little thing. I have a lot of trouble delegating and trusting other people to take things off of my plate. And so I'm at the stage now where I was working really by myself for the first couple years. And, over the last, 2 years or so, I've started building a team. And now as we're, moving into our next phase of growth, my biggest challenge is definitely, getting comfortable with the fact that I can't be involved in every small thing that happens, with one of our clients. And I need to surround myself with incredible people who are competent, capable, talented, and then trust them to do their jobs and to execute.
Yeah, I completely hear you. And when you've got your own name, it's your face of the brand, and it's like, it's your business. But it's like, how do you hire people who are better than you? That's what I'm looking for. It's like, hey, find the people that are even better than I am at those particular roles. What are you most excited about for this year? What is Dorothy fired up for?
Oh my gosh. So many things. I feel like for the first couple years of the agency, I was really just kind of putting one step in front of the other. One foot in front of the other. Like it was always just like, okay, what's next? Like what's the immediate next thing to do? And this year, 2021, I feel like this is the first year where instead of just putting one foot in front of the other, I have this very clear vision for where I'm going and what I'm building. And that clarity has just made things so much more fun. So, I know kind of where we're headed. And, really my goal is in, building the team around me, just like you said, of people who are better at all of this than I am, who can, really, serve our clients on a very high level and allow me to spend less time, kind of in the grind of the business. And so like one thing I've started doing, I mentioned earlier, my passion is horseback riding. So for the last 6 months or so, I've gotten into this flow where every Wednesday, I take almost the entire day off. I maybe work 2 hours in the late afternoon, but otherwise I take the day off and I go riding. And that's something that, like, when I first started the business, I couldn't have even fathomed being able to like take every Wednesday off and go ride horses. And so creating that kind of freedom and flexibility in my life to be able to spend more time with the people I love, spend more time doing the things that I love is so exciting. My partner and I are getting married this year. So I feel like there's just so much happening both on the professional side and on the personal side that's just like lighting me up to keep building this business and building my dreams.
Wow. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, and also the challenge too, because at the beginning, it's no days off. It's 365 days, and it is grit. And they're like, well, what about work-life balance? I'm like, no. At least for the first 2 years, your head is down. Like, you are not even coming up for air to really get that huge momentum. It depending on how big, obviously, you want to grow your business. But if you want to get to a point where, every Wednesday you can take it off and do whatever you want, it does take that grit at the beginning, head down, get it done. And now you're in that place where you can have that more flexibility. So I am so excited for you, for everything that you have coming up this year. I think like everybody in our mastermind is like engaged or married. I just saw one of the other girls who just got engaged. I'm like, I'm the one trying to like run around for my green card. But I love it. I love our family. I love our community that we have within our mastermind. And I'm just so grateful that you spent this time with us today and shared with us all of your incredible nuggets. Where can everybody find you on social media?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I just absolutely love your show, love everything you're doing, and just your energy is infectious. So I just so appreciate you having me. You can find me on Facebook or Instagram at Dorothy Illson. You can find my company, my agency, which is called Needles Eye Media, IEYE. And I am soon to be building out my new home for my personal brand at dorothyillson.com. So I don't know when this show's coming out, but that will be up very soon.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for you. Well, thank you everybody for watching, listening on this week's episode of It Takes Grit. Make sure that you go give Dorothy some love, go follow her, and we will see you guys next week. Bye everyone.